Great. Well, welcome. And yeah, so to start this morning's session, we thought we would just do maybe a landing practice, just to kind of land after either a busy Monday morning or a busy weekend. So I just invite you to settle into a comfortable position. And you may want to either close your eyes or just lower your gaze, just to reduce the internal stimulus from the eyes. And maybe put your hands in your lap or on the tops of your legs, or just kind of crossed and held in whatever position feels comfortable to you. And just looking to have a reasonably straight back, so it's certainly not stiff and rigid and uncomfortable, but also sort of reasonably straight so that you're sort of alert, but also in a relaxed posture. And just an invitation to bring your awareness to your breath as it passes in and out of your nose, just to follow that cycle as we ground and land. Then you might take one or two or maybe three deep breaths just to start. But after that, the invitation is just to allow the breath to settle into whatever is the natural rhythm right now. So we're not controlling it, we're not looking to force it or hold it, we're just following whatever's happening and just focusing on noticing how the breath comes in through the nose, passes down the throat and fills the chest and the tummy, and then passes back out. So just following each breath as it arises and as it passes, and just allowing that to be the anchor or the focus of our attention for a few moments. Now that we've settled a little bit into the breath, I'm going to invite you just to take your focus down to whatever parts of your body are settled on the floor or the seat or the mat or the cushion under you. Just place your attention at that point of your body where you're being supported. Just see if you can sense the breath coming in and flowing all the way down to that point, whether it's your feet or your legs. And just bringing your attention and settling it there and feeling the support of the ground and the chair or the cushion under you. And if it helps, you can maybe kind of twiddle your toes or just wriggle a little bit on your seat. Just really feel into that place that's supporting you. And if we notice that our mind may have moved off into thoughts of what's coming or what's been in the past or the future, then just noticing that, There's no need to worry. That's what the mind does. It creates thoughts. But on this occasion, we're just going to choose to give an inner smile that we've spotted it. And just to bring the attention back to the place where there's contact with the floor. And that feeling of support, that base underneath us that's supporting us. And we do this as many times as is necessary. And we remember that this is the practice, this coming back to the present moment, this waking up out of being off in our thoughts and our emotions. This is the practice, to just keep coming back to what's actually happening right now as life unfolds in real time. And as we feel that sense of support under us, an invitation just to widen our awareness slightly, to feel if there's any tension or discomfort anywhere in the body. And if there is, just to breathe softly into that area and see if, rather than resisting it or being aggravated by it, you can just soften and allow it. Just notice it. But also notice there is other things, other sensations going on, the contact with the floor. There's not just this single place. And if we soften to it, just seeing if it changes. And remembering that there's no right or wrong with mindfulness practice. We're just being with whatever is arising. The breath, any thoughts, just noticing them but allowing them to pass. Any sensations, noticing them but allowing them. And any feelings, including this contact with the floor or the seat under us. Just being with life as it unfolds. And this is the practice. And as we bring this landing practice to a close, seeing if that has brought any thoughts into the mind, just noticing if it has. Because that is the nature of the mind, that it takes a stimulus and it produces thoughts off the back of it. And actually, if we can see that, we can see the way our mind might just be jumping ahead to what's coming next. And we can smile and notice that, but also choose to allow it to pass just as it arose. And just to focus for 3 more breaths on our breath coming in and out of our body, on that contact with the ground or the chair or the cushion under us, and on that feeling of the body, whatever it feels like right now. And then in your own time, absolutely no rush, just gently opening your eyes, maybe having a little bit of a stretch or a drink, and we'll come back together briefly before moving to the main practice. Okay. I just start by apologizing if there's a bit of background noise. I've got extended family and cousins staying here today, so I'm hoping that Zoom is cutting it out. But if you can hear a bit of background murmur, I'm afraid that's just part of what we'll have to accept as life unfolding for today. Okay, so let's maybe just move into a breath meditation. So just settling back into this posture. If there's any sort of discomfort, feel completely free to have a bit of a stretch to just sort of give it a bit of room to move. Otherwise, see if we can soften and allow it. And just closing the eyes or lowering the gaze. And just bringing the attention back to the breath. And we're just paying attention as the breath arises, fills the body, and then passes. And just following that cycle of arising and passing. And then there's an invitation to bring curiosity to this awareness. So just seeing if you can notice where you find it most easy to follow the breath arising and passing. Is it maybe the tip of your nose, maybe in your throat, or maybe in your chest as it's physically filling and then deflating, and filling and deflating? Just investigating where it's easiest to be with the breath and just sitting there. And if you've got quite a busy mind this morning, it can sometimes be helpful just to place a hand on the chest or the tummy and just physically feel the breath as it arises and then passes out of the body. So you've got a kind of a backup. You've got the awareness of the breath, but also that physical feeling of the breath. If that's helpful, then please feel free to try that. And now an invitation that wherever we find it most easy to follow the arising and passing of the breath, just seeing if we can notice the individual quality of each breath. Is it long or is it short? Is it easy or maybe a bit labored? There's no right or wrong, just being with whatever is arising. Just noticing each individual breath as it arises and passes. And maybe we can notice that after each breath passes, there's actually this little kind of pregnant pause before the next breath. So the rhythm is almost a 3-time, not a 2-time. Just seeing if we can notice that pause as well as the arising and the passing. It may be very short or quite long. Just noticing that complete stillness of the pause. And then the way that the breath just naturally arises out of it. And this natural cycle of stillness to movement as the breath arises, and back to stillness in that pause. And noticing that because we trust the body and the breath, there's no holding on to the breath that's passed out. Instead, we just stay with that stillness, just awaiting the body's natural reflex to breathe again with the arising of the next breath. And that brings an element of calm to that stillness, of trust. And if we notice that thoughts have arisen, just giving that inner smile and coming back to the breath, just coming back to the arising and the passing and the stillness. Maybe if it happens a few times and we come back each time, we start to notice that actually the thoughts can arise out of stillness, just like the breath does. But actually, if we just name them as a thought, and don't engage with them, but just allow them to arise, then naturally they arise, but also naturally pass and return back to the stillness. And then this stillness becomes the ground for whatever's happening, second to second, moment to moment. Stillness into movement as the breath arises, and back into stillness. In the same way that we have stillness into, well, a thought's arisen, and I can see it and I name it as a thought. I choose just to come back to the breath, and then through the breath, the stillness of the pause. And noticing that perhaps some thoughts are arising with a degree of urgency or emotion surrounding them. It makes it very tempting to go off into the thoughts and follow them, and then the mind will just do its thing and think further thoughts. But actually, it's just a thought. And just like a breath arising, we don't try to hold it when it passes away. Just seeing if we can go, okay, there's a thought with some urgency or an emotion attached. But right now, I've just chosen to sit with what's unfolding second to second with my breath. So I smile and come back to the breath arising and the breath passing, and the simple stillness of life unfolding. And then we can be confident that if that thought was really so important, I'm sure it will come back later today, and we can maybe set aside some time in the evening to have a think about it. Just choosing right now that instead we're going to give this time to ourselves to just settle and relax and just be with life unfolding. And just noticing if the breath is changing in any way. Maybe slowing down as we settle, maybe speeding up, maybe changing in intensity if a few more thoughts are arising. Just noticing that, noticing if we follow it. Is the breath changing through the course of this sitting? Just following the arising and the passing, the pause and the stillness before the next arising. And if we have a similar thought that keeps repeating, maybe some plan for the future or worry about the past, just seeing if we can maybe name it generically rather than engaging in the detail of it. So maybe planning mind, planning thoughts, or worry about something somebody said. And just kind of noting it and parking it. Maybe at the end of the practice, we can just write it down and think about it at a later stage. But for now, we're just going to name it generically, acknowledge it, give that inner smile and come back to the breath. Yep, we've seen it. We've seen that it's calling. But actually right now we're going to choose to note it and come back to it later. Because for now we've chosen just to be with the breath, grounding into life as it unfolds. And as we sense the breath arising and passing, and that pause, just seeing now if we can widen our experience a bit to see what is the feeling attached to that. Is it constrained or is it spacious? Is it nerve-wracking or is it relaxed? Is it tense or is it peaceful? Just seeing if we can notice whatever feeling is arising. There's no right or wrong feeling, just seeing if we can breathe in, just the breath arising. Breathe out. Sit in the pause. And just sense at the same time what's the feeling associated with that. breath arising, the breath passing, and that pregnant pause before the next breath. And now in the last few minutes, just noticing if there are other things that are arising and passing at the same time. So maybe keeping our attention still on the breath as it arises and passes, and the pause. But just noticing, for example, if there are any sounds that are also arising and lasting for maybe a short or longer period of time before also passing. Or maybe a body sensation. Just noticing how at any one time there's a number of things just arising and passing. And then in our own time, just maybe having a bit of a stretch or just moving slightly, drink. And in your own time, just opening your eyes gently, and we'll come back together for a bit. It's very sweet. I've got my young cousin trying to persuade our dog to give him a paw in the background. I can hear this. Paw, paw. So, quite nice to have, or certainly for me, so thank you. Really lovely to have the ability just to practice with some real extended periods of stillness and quiet. So thank you both very much for that. And I just wondered if there's anything you wanted to share or ask. Sammy, you're very welcome to come on screen if you're happy to, but if you prefer not to, that's absolutely fine. But yeah, any reflections or thoughts about today? Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just remembered. There you go. Delayed awareness. I'm just going to stop the recording.